Welcome to This Explainer. Go ahead and take a deep breath, settle in, and just imagine we're sitting down in a comfortable room together, cup of coffee or tea in hand. Today, we're diving into something that is incredibly common, yet almost nobody openly talks about it. We're talking about sudden, intense midlife anger. You know, as someone who helps people navigate these really tricky life transitions, I see this literally all the time. You are trying your absolute best, you're holding everything together, and yet you might be feeling this entirely unfamiliar fury just bubbling up inside. Well, we're going to unpack exactly why that's happening today, and more importantly, how you can find your way back to calm.
Look, I want to start off by just completely validating what you might be experiencing right now. Someone cuts you off in traffic, right? And your first reaction isn't just mild annoyance, it's pure, unadulterated rage. Or maybe your kid asks you the same question for the second time and you snap. Hard. A coworker makes a tiny, easily fixable mistake, and you are just disproportionately furious about it. And then comes the aftermath, that crushing wave of guilt and anxiety that hits immediately following the outburst. You find yourself looking in the mirror asking, why am I so angry all the time? I am not normally like this.
I really need you to hear this loud and clear. You are not losing your mind, and you aren't just stressed. Now, you might think that as we age, we're supposed to naturally become more zen, right? More patient, more accepting of the world. But the data, it tells a completely different story. Studies actually show that irritability and anger naturally peak between the ages of 40 and 50. It's measurable, it's documented, and it's a known reality. So what you're experiencing right now is this massive collision of biology and psychology.
Phase 1. Your brain on midlife hormones.
Okay, let's dive into this and start our diagnosis phase. We really need to look at what's happening under the hood here. Our baseline emotional stability is fundamentally shifting during this time, and it's primarily because of fluctuating hormone levels. It's kind of like, well, imagine the shock absorbers on your car are slowly wearing out. Suddenly, you feel every single bump in the road way more intensely than you used to. For men, testosterone is dropping by about 1% per year after 30. But here's the thing. Testosterone doesn't just affect muscle mass or sex drive. It critically impacts your mood and emotional regulation. Lower testosterone literally equals lower baseline mood stability. And for women, declining estrogen and progesterone directly affect serotonin production. Since serotonin is your brain's primary mood stabilizer, less estrogen means less serotonin, which makes it infinitely harder to regulate your mood.
And we absolutely cannot forget the wear and tear of the last 2 decades. I mean, you've been carrying work stress, family stress, financial stress for 20-odd years. Because of this, your stress hormone, cortisol, is likely chronically elevated. Throw in the fact that your dopamine regulation, which affects motivation and emotional responses, is also changing. And your neurobiology is literally primed to have a shorter fuse for frustration. So please, let go of the guilt. This isn't some deep character flaw, it is neurobiology at work.
Phase 2. Decades of unprocessed resentment.
So, let's look at how this builds into the psychological side of things. I want to hold up a gentle mirror to the emotional baggage you've likely been carrying, because while biology definitely primes the pump, it's the psychological weight that usually lights the match. And that weight, it's made up of decades of unprocessed resentment that you've just swallowed and pushed down. Think about your timeline. In your 20s, you probably let small slights slide just to keep the peace. In your 30s, you started making compromises at work and at home that, if we're honest, you didn't really want to make. You left all these unspoken frustrations totally unsaid, and that stuff doesn't just vanish into thin air, it festers. By the time you hit 45, your frustration tolerance has completely bottomed out. So when you blow up at your partner over a random dish left in the sink, you aren't really angry about the dish. You are reacting to 10, maybe 20 years of unaddressed simmering frustrations.
Phase 3. Burnout and loss of control.
Which brings us to a massive piece of the puzzle, this profound loss of control. Let's just take a second to validate how incredibly exhausted you are. It's deeper than just being tired. You are burned out. For 20 or 30 years, you have been making constant, relentless decisions, financial decisions, parenting decisions, career paths, health choices. Making thousands of daily decisions for decades causes severe decision fatigue. It literally drains every ounce of your emotional energy. So when a tiny inconvenience happens, you simply do not have the reserves left to handle it calmly.
And then there's the grief. You see, at 30, you probably had very specific expectations for your life. What your career would look like, your finances, your physical health, your relationships. But now at 45, reality might look quite a bit different. Maybe you didn't get that big promotion, or maybe your body just isn't cooperating like it used to. There's a really deep frustration and a very real grief in realizing you can control far less than you originally thought you could. When our reality doesn't match our expectations and we lose that sense of control, the natural human response is outward rage. Now, when these biological and psychological factors combine and go unchecked, you fall right into a toxic feedback loop. It's completely self-perpetuating. Acting on this anger doesn't relieve it at all. It just creates more of it.
Let's walk through this downward spiral together. You get angry at a minor trigger and you snap at someone. Boom, immediately, you feel this intense guilt and regret. That guilt breeds anxiety, which in turn makes you lose sleep. And we all know what happens next. Anger-induced sleep loss absolutely ruins your emotional regulation for the very next day, making you even more irritable. Before long, your brain enters full-on threat detection mode. You start catastrophizing. A forgotten chore suddenly feels like intentional disrespect. A simple question feels like a harsh complaint. Your brain just starts interpreting everything as a personal attack, keeping you completely locked in that spiral.
The treatment plan. Let's look at what actually helps.
Okay, take a nice, slow breath with me here. We are shifting gears into the actionable steps, how to actually soothe your nervous system and reclaim your peace. On the biological side, talk to a doctor about hormone optimization. Move your body in ways that reduce cortisol, things like strength training, swimming, or honestly, just going for a walk. And guard your sleep fiercely. 7 to 9 hours is non-negotiable for regulating those emotions. Psychologically, it's time to start processing that backlog of resentment, ideally with a therapist. But crucially, when that sudden rage hits you in the moment, you need immediate tools. I want you to try one of these 3 simple breathing exercises. First, box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. Second, the 4-7-8 method. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Or third, the physiological sigh. That's 2 quick inhales followed by 1 long, slow exhale. Any of these will instantly activate your rest and digest mode.
Reframing and communicating anger.
The absolute most crucial psychological shift we need to make today is reframing how you view the emotion of anger itself. We have to transition away from explosive reactivity. I want you to remember this. Your anger is information. Say it out loud if you have to. I want you to adopt this mindset completely. Your anger is not a weakness. It's not something to just suppress and hide away. It's a vital, blazing signal from your body telling you that a boundary has been violated, an expectation wasn't met, or that you are simply burned out and not being heard.
So instead of snapping, we pause. We use the anger as a diagnostic tool. Ask yourself right then, what specific boundary was just crossed? What expectation fell short? What do I actually need in this exact moment? Once you decode what the anger is telling you, you can take that info and communicate it without sparking a massive conflict with your partner. Here's some quick tips. Tip number 1, use I statements. Say, I feel overwhelmed when, instead of, you never do X. Tip number 2, pick a neutral time to talk. Don't do it when you're both already stressed out of your minds. And tip number 3, focus on the specific behavior, not their character. That is exactly how you turn explosive reactivity into real, actionable change. 45. Managing anger after 40 is just different. And I want to reassure you that you probably aren't going to return to the exact emotional baseline you had when you were 30. And you know what? That is completely okay. You don't need to. The goal here isn't going backward. It's to build a highly communicative, beautifully emotionally regulated 45-year-old self, one who understands their root causes and handles them with real grace. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. The next time you feel that sudden flash of rage bubbling up, don't just fight it, and don't just react to it. Take a beat, pause, and ask yourself, what is my anger trying to tell me today? Listen to its underlying message. Because the payoff? It's fewer regrets, a much deeper understanding of yourself, and far stronger relationships. Thank you so much for sitting down with me for this explainer. Be patient with yourself. This stuff takes time. Take care.